2009 to order. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Chairman Stelly was unable to attend this evening. Vice Chairman Landry.
Here.
Mr. Andrepont.
Here.
Mrs. Griffin.
Present.
Mr. Guidry.
Yeah, here.
Mrs. Trimmie. And President McMillan.
He's here,
Is
Madam
present.
Secretary.
I did see him. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Actually, I think they're both here. Item 3, administrative presentation of the parish's fiscal year 2010 budget. Mr. McMurray.
There's Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes,
I'm going to just open this up just to simply introduce Brian's going to do the presentation, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank those people that worked so hard on this, and that really includes the whole slew of folks in the finance office, not the least of which, of course, is Tammy Buffkin. She was up here many nights working on this. Brian's involvement obviously was extensive. A lot of Tammy and Jerry's people worked very hard on it, but it also includes all the department heads and those people within the departments that spent a lot of hours before it ever got to the finance people, and sometimes we forget to include those folks in our thank yous. But as has always been the case, I think our budget is a first-class, quality-laden budget. It probably gives you better information than 99%, if not all, of local government authorities in the country in terms of how to base your judgments, how to set your priorities, what the cost of those are going to be, what the options of providing some of the services that are included in here. I think you'll find in this document one of the best tools that you can ever have to be able to perform your work adequately on behalf of your constituents. And I'm going to ask Brian to walk you through this presentation, and then I'm going to close it out after he gets through. And then, of course, we'd be happy to answer any questions that are generated by this. It's a lot to absorb all in just a 30 or 45-minute session, but that offer to answer any questions extends well beyond tonight. So feel free to call us with any follow-up questions. Brian.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, and Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'll cover this pretty quickly. As Mark said, it's a lot of information, but it's good information. And then at the end, whatever questions you may have, or stop me at any point during the way. We're going to follow a similar format that we've done in previous years, where we cover some of the accomplishments from the current year, 09. We'll go over the numbers for 2010 as proposed to you, and then also take a look ahead at some of the key initiatives that are in the 2010 budget. We always like to start off the accomplishments with our Road and Drainage Trust Fund. It's one of those that just keeps on going, but it doesn't get a lot of play in the media. But every year y'all bring the mayors and drainage districts up here and hand out those checks. It's just a reminder of how important this program is. It's in its 16th year, and over that period, $17.6 million of your funds from the road tax has translated into over $88 million of projects throughout the parish. Major projects in road and drainage areas throughout the whole parish, so it's very significant. And this is done every year. We really want to mention road construction. It's our bread and butter here, even today with all the other services, and this year was no exception. $23 million in road construction. We updated this graph. You now have up to 94% of roads in the unincorporated areas that are asphalt, that are hard surfaced. You compare that to 1990, which was just a couple of years before the 1992 tax, the first one that did this, and you can see it as a major improvement. And that's a testament to the police jury and its vision over the last 20 years to see this happen. Very few non-asphalt roads in the parish. A couple of those we want to make note of that were completed this year. The first, Red Davis-McAllister Road, and also very recently we did a dedication up in Sandy's area for Pine Forest. The Red Davis-McAllister Road, which is south of Lake Charles, runs between Gulf Highway and Highway 14, was a project, $6 million. It's about a 2.4-mile stretch. And you can see those are true pictures. They look almost like a tourist bureau picture, but that's the real sky, and that's the real road. And it's a beautiful addition, as is the Pine Forest Road. Up in the Quincy area, that's between Edgerly to Quincy Road and Highway 27. If you go up there now, they look pretty serene. There's not much there. I'm sure 10 years, 20 years from now, people will travel on those with no second thought. but they won't recognize the vision of your body and the staff that proposed this to you, and you approving it for the future, way into the future, looking ahead. It's not just for today. So we're very proud of these, and these both opened in 2009. Drainage master planning is a key element. This is one of those projects, as you know, that goes over multi-years, so we talk about it each year. It's just in different phases. This is a map of the 9 drainage basins that are included in the study, and we are partially through that. As of now, Ward 1, I'll get to the Ike proposal in a minute. The Ward 1 study has been completed. 3 or 4 others are underway in the drainage study. All of the studies, of the different basins are expected to be complete in 2010. And as I get into the 2010 activities, I'll talk a little bit more about that. This year, actually, hopefully, pardon me, later tonight anyway, if things go well, full body will approve the proposal for the Hurricane Ike recovery plan. As a reminder, this is the $17.7 million allocated to Calcasieu from the LRA at CDBG funds. The plan is on your regular meeting agenda tonight and for final approval and submittal to the state. That was a major effort. Several of you served on an ad hoc committee or a group of jurors working with mayors to come up with this plan, a lot of public input, and it's all come together, and I think it's a very good visionary plan. We had some construction projects of note we do each year. I want to point out a couple this year. One is right next door, which you're very familiar with. It's probably one of the most visible symbols of our parish, and that's historic old courthouse built in 1912. The dome took a lot of damage in Rita. It wasn't that visible, but a lot of damage usually isn't in these kind of projects or these kind of structures. You can see the left photo is while it was under construction. It's just recently completed. It's beautiful. Officially, it'll be finished in December, but it's pretty much done now as far as what you're looking at. If any of you have noticed it lately at night, it is a beautiful sight. It is better lit. There is still more lighting to come. They're going to have more of a cable run across that will highlight it so that when anybody driving by Ryan Street won't be able to miss it. So it's going to look even better, but we're very proud of that. That project was about $750,000. It's not cheap to keep our buildings, historic buildings, up to grade, but we really needed to. And that was a replacement of a standing seam copper roof, and many of the ornamental features were restored, and that really was important in this whole project. A really important project that was completed, again officially it's probably December of this year, is the Burton Coliseum Outdoor Arena. There's a whole lot of staff members and others who worked hard to bring this to fruition. As far as the funding, it's a combination of some FEMA funds because it was damaged in Rita, insurance money, some capital outlay, some of your own matching funds. This is a $4.8 million project, 103,000 square foot facility. It will be greatly used. Livestock show and many other events throughout the year. It is a great improvement, if you will, to the old arena. Initially, we were going to just fix the old one. It made perfect sense to improve it because of the extensive damage. And I'm sure in the next month or two, you'll see us out there and we'll do some sort of official ribbon cutting. But this is something you can be very proud of. Another project we completed this year is walking path lighting out at Prien Lake Park. That's one of those that we've learned since the park opened. We have a lot of walkers out there, especially for evening and nighttime, and there were some dark corners of those areas. So for security purposes and having lighting along all the pathways, this was wrapped up, and it just makes a beautiful park even more beautiful, especially in the evening, and people can feel like it's safe wherever they go. Excuse me. We continue our litter enforcement and awareness initiatives. I don't think you could drive anywhere in this parish and not know that the police jury is doing this program. This is an example here on the screen of one of the promotional ads. You can't afford to be trashy. You see the litter hotline that's developed. A lot went into this that is, for most people, kind of boring, but it's very important. And those prosecution and judicial refinements that allowed simple littering, the 14th JDC is now involved. It's a much more streamlined process, and you can see on the slide, we've actually had over 1,700 reports of littering on our hotline. That is very heavily used. People feel good that they can report it. The hotline, as a reminder, does not end up in a ticket. It ends up in a letter to the violators, but it lets people know they're being watched You couple that with the enforcement that's out there, and it's been very effective. And we will continue to do these awareness campaigns into 2010. Very proud of our website redesign this year. This is a home page. I think you're all familiar with it. It's gotten tremendous amount of use for good reason. It's frankly much better than our old site. It's got so many features that allow us to do things that people not only appreciate but expect in modern website use. It was actually recognized nationally recently in the National Creativity Awards, which is pretty important when you can get a national award your first year out. And we'll keep applying for other awards as well. Let me show you a slide that Jessica put together that shows you our 4, at this time, most popular hits. One of the things I really like about the site, at any point you can see what are the most popular sites. The top left is the Geographic Information System application, which coincidentally we just had a little bit of a promotional effort on the lobby this week. It is a great application used by citizens more than anything else, realtors and many others in the community, and I would invite you to go check that out. The bottom left is the calendar of events that is on the website. If you go to the bottom right, that is our park system. There's photos, information, directions, some videos, very heavily used. The top right here is our what we call our social media site. You can be comfortable. We're keeping up with the times with things like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're on all of those, and we utilize those technologies, especially for the younger generations. This is what they do. I'm an old newspaper guy. I like to get up, eat my breakfast, turn the page, feel the paper. I'm probably considered old hat by most people's standards under 25. So it's important that we reach that group, and this is the way they do it. And as you can see, it's in our top 4 hits. So our site is greatly advanced now because of that. We're going to end, as we always do, our accomplishments with some recognition. This never gets old. Our finance office got the Government Finance Officers Award. That's the Achievement Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 17th year in a row. Not many governments in the state get this. It takes a lot to get this. There's no small feat, and so each year we add this slide, and thank Jerry and Tammy and all the finance staff for all the work they do. We're very proud of that, and I know you are as well. Let's take a look at the numbers. And before we get into the heart of that, let me just talk a bit about the theme of this year. We met in this room back in September with all the department heads, and so we cover some of the highlights. And the theme this year was recognize the economy we're in, recognize the times and the environment, know that businesses, individuals are out there trying to make ends meet. And so the theme, I guess, would be frugality. We need to keep our services up, but this isn't the year to try to do a lot of new things you might have on the visionary plate. Let's try to keep the status quo. We know we're going to have some cost increases in some areas. Capital spending, we're fortunate to be able to do a good bit of that, but we recognize the environment we're in, and you'll see that as we go through some of these slides. So what do we have for this year? It is an increase. Our budget this year is $207.7 million. Our proposed budget is $228.5 million, which is a 10% increase. Here's the good news. $18.8 million of that is for capital projects, money that has been saved in our fund balances over the years, collected in revenues, primarily, as you'll see in a moment, for a lot of road construction. Other than that, you can combine everything else. Of that 10%, only 0.9 is for other. So we have watched where the money goes. Most of the increases you see is for capital spending. Let me just cover revenues briefly. I don't have a slide on it, but in the budget for 2010, looking ahead, we get projections from Richard Cole, tax assessor. There's good news on the property tax front, about an 8%, a little over 8% projected increase in property taxes, which funds, of course, a lot of your services. That's good news. That's one of the thing about taxes is you want to see that diversity because you're going to have property taxes, which are much more stable, typically. They're going to go up even in lean times. And we're fortunate to have a $1.4 billion tax assessment here in this parish, which continues to grow. On the sales tax side, however, that's where we started to see a hit this year. The economy has finally been hit. in Calcasieu in '09. We're seeing it in the sales tax numbers. They've declined throughout the year, starting in about April. Fortunately, we had a good first few months, and we're really right on budget this year. We're projecting about a 10% decrease in sales tax revenues next year. Hopefully, we're low. Hopefully, it's higher than that. We don't want to miss the mark too much, so our budget's based on less sales tax coming in 2010. We cover some of this increase in a little more detail. As I said, capital projects, the increase of $18.8 million is 34% higher than this year, but again, that's a good news story. We've had the funds for capital. This is not operational. And again, most of that will be road construction. There's some grant funding in there. Some of that is for the Ike monies as budgeted, our best estimate of what we might spend. This is significant. Now, the operating funds, they are going up, but only by 4.4%, which is really not a big increase. I'll explain a little bit more in a slide in just a moment how we got there. I think you'll feel like we've done a good job trying to keep the money from growing in the operational area. And we actually have some fund decreases in some areas, primarily from timing of how gaming money is spent and some of the special district money capital projects as well. But the capital projects is the big news on what the increase consists of. You'll see that 79% of that capital budget, and that's what this slide is dedicated to road construction. Back in the '02 tax, when that was renewed, it was a commitment to maintain the hard surface roads that were done from the '92 tax. Every 10 to 12 years, you really need to redo those, resurface those to keep them in good shape. That's very solid maintenance planning, and that's where most of the money goes. So it takes a good bit. This is a high injection of funds in 2010 for road construction, which is a lot of overlays mixed with some new construction as well. So that's a good news story. This is what you told the public you'd spend the money on, and that's what you're doing. Quickly, going around to just a few of the others, the courthouse complex, we do have some mechanical upgrades we want to do at the 901 Lakeshore building, as well as some grant funding in there. We feel pretty confident we'll get some hazard mitigation funds to do what they call hardening that building, which is put a new roof on it and window filming for protection in the event of high winds and storms. The Burton Coliseum project, that actually gets into the Coliseum proper. Again, we are hopeful that we will be able to utilize the CDBG monies, the Ike monies. For that, it's considered an economic development project, recovery project. So some of the work would be done in 2010, and that's what that's for. Some of the parks, Calcasieu Point, Intracoastal, and others are in there for capital. The Mossville Sewer Project, the Seed Center, which I'll have a slide on in a minute. That's a big chunk of the remainder of that budget. The Allen August Center actually was approved recently. You'll see construction probably start before the year's out. And that is over at an annex to the current multipurpose center at Moling and Prater in Lake Charles. And then there's a little other various projects. I want to use an example here just a moment to talk about the operational side, just so you'll feel comfortable that we've been attentive to the theme of not growing our operations in this environment. And I don't know if Lucas is here, but I don't want him to get nervous. Lucas, you here? I didn't tell him I was doing this. This is really just an example I want to use. Mosquito control, we just picked it out, but this applies all across the board. For every department, what we did before they even took a look at where they're going to propose a budget, we have a 2.0% wage adjustment proposed in the budget, which we felt we really want to reward employees as best we can, but we recognize, again, the environment we're in. We felt like this was a very prudent thing to do. We also have a 25-cent floor, per hour floor. Significance of that is that helps the guys at the lower end of the pay scale. They'll get at least that. So for those people, you know, for example, $10 an hour or less, they're actually getting more than 2%. So that's a very important thing to have in there. We are required this year to actually increase by 3.5% the employer match for the retirement system, parochial retirement system. It is an excellent system. It's one of the best in the state, but it's also affected, as many of you know, by the economy nationally and statewide. So we've had to add that in to every department's budget. And we're also not immune to health care increases. The premiums for health and dental are going up $55 a month per employee. That translates to about 2.6% on average for an employee. So right off the bat, personnel-related costs are going up 8.1%. So you take a guy like Lucas and he goes, man, I'm already starting behind right there. Even with that, the mosquito control budget's only up 4.1%. That personnel-related cost of 8.1% makes up 46+% of the overall increase. So the message there is that a lot of adjustments have been made, even in an environment of these mandated costs that we really have to include, retirement, health care, and so forth. Our departments have done a really good job at trimming the budget in other areas, so it is not a very significant increase overall. One other slide on that note. It is by design, not by accident, that we're able to come to you today and say, we don't have a long list of layoffs we think we're going to have to do, or multi-year cutbacks. And the reason is, for many years, we've advocated and practiced sound financial planning, building up reserves and fund balances in the good years, so that when you need them in the lean years, and this is one of them, they're there to use. So you'll see in 2010, we have several budgeted transfers from fund balances. That's basically the equivalent of saying taking money from savings into checking when you need it, as opposed to having to add some other tax monies or cut back in other areas. So I think that's a lot of good news. You should be very proud as an organization that that's what you've practiced for several years. General fund, I want to show with special mention, $1.9 million. That's a lot of money to take out of a fund balance. And Mark has been telling you all this for the past 3 years. This has been happening. It's been on our way. Unfortunately, the voters last week, they didn't pass the operations tax, courthouse and jail maintenance tax renewal and increase. And this is one of the things that we're going to have to deal with. So we will be coming to you probably in the near future as a proposal to probably put that tax back on the ballot in the spring. Obviously, you'll have to think about that and what level it would be. But that problem is not going away, unfortunately, and we do have to draw from fund balance there. And then Public Works operating, and you see the numbers. Several of those we have to do. But that's really the good news, if you will. These things won't last forever. Our economy will pick up. We're hopeful that as we do that, we don't have to keep making these draws. But it's good to know that the money's there when you need it. Okay. Let's just hit a few highlights of key initiatives next year. The Vision Calcasieu plan, of course, we covered a lot of that this year. A lot of work's been done. It is an excellent plan in our opinion. It does need some refinements and completion of some studies. For example, the wastewater study, I'll cover some of that in a moment. The drainage basin studies I mentioned. Y'all prudently felt like we should wait on doing anything official with this plan until those studies come through that give us a little more information. There's also an effort to develop subdivision codes, a newer set of codes that will give a lot of the people in the development community and others a better idea of what might go in a Vision Calcasieu plan, so that when we come back to you sometime, probably by the middle of the year, we'll have a lot more information, and we feel like we'll be able to come to you with a plan you should feel very proud and comfortable to pass. And we continue to work on that now and will throughout the first part of 2010. Wastewater planning, I know you've seen this slide before. Sometimes it feels like we say the same things, but the fact is this is a very complex area of service. And as you know, next week actually, Francis is chair of that committee. We're going to be meeting next Tuesday at 4, his committee. There's different parts of that, the mechanical systems. What standards should we have? Should we have an inspection system? In the community system part of it, that gets into the Vision Calcasieu area. For those subdivisions in the future that are built not near a current municipal sewer system, we probably need to have some technical requirements for those community systems. And then also, where can we feasibly expand existing municipal systems in a traditional way? So all of those are coming together. We're much further along than we were a while back, but it is a ongoing process. I know y'all have had a lot of patience in dealing with this, but we continue to address these issues. On the drainage front, this is just another version of the earlier basin study, but just so you'll know, again, a multi-year feat here. I want to credit Alan and his staff and Claude and his with all of the work they've done internally and with the outside consultants. By the middle of this year, hopefully, we'll have all of those studies complete or close to it. It's important in many ways, but it's very important to understand there will be models for long-term planning. And in a very simplified sense, it will tell us what projects could we do and what would it cost to help alleviate drainage problems in certain areas. But there's a reality, too, that it's also going to tell us where we shouldn't build. All of this keeps going back to this comprehensive planning idea. We don't want to have a problem get worse by building where we know it's going to be a drainage problem. That's gotten us to where we are today, unfortunately, in some areas. So this study is critical to identify those areas as well as projects that can be done in current culverts and so forth. On the road front, I know a lot of you, especially on the west side, are very interested in the frontage road projects that were conceptualized within the last few years. It's no secret when you go anywhere around the country, many of us pull off the interstate, see restaurants we like on those service roads. The idea of these is really economic development. It's not for really traffic mobility. As envisioned, we would have frontage roads on the north and south of I-10 in the Sulphur area, between Old Highway 27 on the south, all the way, hopefully one day to Pete's A. But the first phase is between Old Highway 27 and the Sabine Diversion Canal. And we hopefully will actually let that project in the early part of 2010, so that's getting much closer. On the north side, this is a conceptual route. It's not quite as far along as the south, but you can see in the red, that's where that route would go for that leg. It's a little more in the design phase throughout 2010, with construction hopefully starting in 2011. That conceptual route actually, if you're going from Ruth Street westward, that's where the intersection is with Henning Drive at that traffic light. So there's a lot of environmental work to check, surveying. That route could change depending on what the outcome is, but as we stand now, that's the route that would be done. And again, it tracks just a little behind the south side as far as the timing. Solid waste. Core service that we provide, of course. Current contracts, mainly with Waste Management, but also with Gym Bill Disposal and Ward 1. Both expire at the end of this year. First meeting in December, we will probably come to you with a proposal to extend those contracts for 1 year while we look at the long term, which we have to work on very quickly. We feel like for most of 2010, we still have revenues coming in on the fund balance from that tax from 2002, which no longer is levied, but it's going to run out in 2010. Our proposal in the budget is to supplement the gap in that with some gaming funds on a one-time basis. But we also have to look at what is the scope of services. Well, obviously, we feel like the people will want to continue, and you will, house-to-house collection. But you also expressed an interest in one or more drop-off centers for some of these bulky items where people can't currently bring them, at least anywhere in the parish. So we'll do some cost estimates depending on the scope. And then what is our source of funding? Do we go back for another sales tax shot? And if so, how much? So we'll be looking at all of these things in the very near future, so this is just a little bit of a heads up that that's coming. I want to show you some text from a strategic plan the Southwest Alliance has put together. Actually got that this week. Very interesting presentation from these consultants they've hired that are nationally recognized. One of their goals in there, balance the Southwest Louisiana economy. Objective, establish Southwest Louisiana as an entrepreneurial and small business friendly region. I show you that because our seed center that is not projected, it's actually going to happen, nails right on the head that issue. And I'm very proud to say that after Rita, this was in your plan, the Rita Recovery Plan, top project. It's a partnership, as a reminder, between Police Jury, City of Lake Charles, McNeese, and the Alliance. This is a conceptual drawing of the plan. We're actually under detailed design phase now. Expect to start construction in the spring. It is a 3-story facility, about 50,000 square feet. It is about $13 million is projected. $11 million of that is grant funding. It's a very good use of grant money. I want to thank the CDBG and LRA. Again, this would be the RETA money. $7 million from CDBG funding, $4 million from an EDA grant, that's the Economic Development Administration, federal level, and the remainder is funded by the parish, city, and the Alliance. And that's coming to fruition. We're very excited about that. This is a layout of the property, give you an idea where it is. This is Ryan Street. This is Contraband Bayou. Probably the best way to tell you where this is if you're going down Ryan and you see that McDonald's with the big play place, that one, and the Smoothie King. Right behind that is about 8 acres of vacant property that McNeese has. This doesn't happen without McNeese's cooperation, and it will create synergies between the academic community and the business community. Located here will be the Alliance, the MCAL staff, the McNeese Small Business Development Center, and very importantly, a business incubator. And that's geared to have small business development increase in our area. That is an area that is really needed. And that isn't just us talking. We now have the experts telling us the same thing after a very detailed analysis. You'll probably hear a lot more about that in early January when we do some formal promotion of this project getting kicked off, but you get a little bit of a sneak preview here. Quickly, some other initiatives for 2010, just mentioning, and then I'll turn it over to Mark to wrap up the presentation. We do expect to begin implementation of several of these Ike-funded projects from that money. The Allen P. August Center, as I mentioned, will complete that in 2010. Shannon, if you're in the audience, we haven't forgotten about the old Highway 171, the property near there. That's the 25 acres that we will ask you to put a citizens committee together and help us design park elements, design process in 2010, try to construct some whatever park design there would be in place by 2011, get started. And then also we are going to continue to use our website to enhance applications for citizens. For example, we are very hopeful that in 2010 we will have different types of permitting applications online, which this body has asked that we take a hard look at. So we're strong on that track. Jimmy and his staff are looking at that very heavily, and you'll see much more of that over the next several months. With that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Mark to wrap it up, and then we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bean.
Thanks, Brian. Since this is the last annual budget process that I'm going to be a part of after 34 years, I wanted to make a few comments. Number one, thank you to members of the jury present and past for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this process. I say in an epilogue to this document that this is among, if not the most important, one of the most important things that you can expect of your staff is to be able to present to you this kind of tool. And I would encourage you, as you talk to your colleagues from around the state, to ask them what their budget document looks like and ask them what information they have in their document that helps them make decisions about what the priorities in their parishes are. And I think what you're going to find is an awful lot of parishes that have this kind of page, numbers. But you can see that over half of this book are narratives that give you a really good idea of what goes on in those departments, both in words and in numbers, giving you ideas about how many road miles Public Works maintains, how often Lucas and his bunch are checking traps out there to determine what the level of spraying needs to be, all the kind of quantitative information that becomes very qualitative for you about what your parish government does for the 185,000+ people that you serve. So as I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of that, I want to tell you that of all the joys that I have every year of being a part of this operation and hopefully making some difference in quality of life in Calcasieu Parish, one of the greatest joys I have is to watch Tammy and Brian and Jerry and the people that have a part of putting this document together, watch their dedication, their drive, the energy they put forth into making sure that you got the best data to answer any question that a constituent may have about what it costs to do this or that, Why do we do this or that? Is there a better way to do this or that? Do we need to do this or that? I think that this document gives you an awful lot of that. In closing, this slide I'd call your attention to, we tried to do something a little bit different with it, and we couldn't quite do it, mostly because I was pretty late in giving it to Jessica in the first place. But this term quality, it says countless, sometimes unseen details are often the only difference between mediocre and magnificent. And I think we picked this particular picture because the dome of that building has been around here since 1912, and for the first time was completely reworked this year. Is the detail in that, some of which is seen, some of which is not seen, is really the difference between mediocre and magnificent. And I think some of the things that Brian went through earlier, the Prien Lake Park development project, there's nothing mediocre about that project. Pine Forest Road, Red Davis Road, the frontage roads that are planned for this year, there's no mediocrity there. Those are magnificent projects. There certainly is no mediocrity in the way your finance department has achieved this GFOA award for 17 consecutive years. That is excellence on top of excellence. So I hope that the picture that we paint for you is that on your behalf, the people that are working on the behalf of all 15 of you to make sure that your service level to your constituents, that quality is something that remains job one for us. And I don't want to sound like a Ford commercial, but it really is job one. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. And it's not enough to just do the right things. You got to do those right things the right way. And I think that that's our goal, and that's what we try to do. With that, I think any of us, Tammy, Brian, myself, be happy to try to answer any questions that any of you have about the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McMurray. Mr. Anderpont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me preface by saying that I've been here a long time, and the quality of presentation has gotten better every year. I've been in Tammy Buffkin's office a few times, and all I see is a desk covered with paper. And I don't know how she manages to put all that together, but it's a tribute to her. Secondly, I want to comment and congratulate Brian on an excellent presentation here this afternoon, too. Brian, I do have one question. Not my question, but it's a question that I have been asked from people who have been serviced by the solid waste service provision over the years, and I realize that we are at a crossroads now as to what direction we're going to take. I need something to kind of hang my hat on when I'm in a grocery store trying to buy bread or something and be interrupted and say what we're going to do about this and that. So I guess the question that I need to ask you, Brian, is relatively simple, but obviously everyone knows that this was paid for by a sales tax. Have we determined, or when I say we, has it been determined if we go back with a sales tax, what would it be? Would it have to be another half-cent sales tax? Have y'all gotten that far yet? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
We are actually, I guess you could say, in a lot of discussions about it. Let me just try to summarize that because it is a very good question. We all get asked that, I'm sure you do. I think the first thing is if you go forward with what we will probably propose to you early December, extending the current contracts 1 year is going to take us and give us some breathing room to figure out the long term. So that it isn't as if at the end of this year we're not going to have service. We won't be resting long on that, because if we do come to you with some sort of sales tax proposal, it would need to probably be in the May 1st election. Because of the state's deadlines, they're very long in advance of that. As early as maybe your first meeting, certainly your second in January, we would have to come to you with any type of proposal to put something on the ballot. So it's in the very near term that we will need to be wrapping up proposals to you. Just as a reminder to everybody, the 2002, in 2002, when that tax was renewed, it was just for roads and some of it for the transit program you have. We had fortunately built up a good fund balance in that from the 92 tax that we quit levying that half-cent for solid waste. So we've been operating the program off of that ever since, which means we had good funds for that, but it's running out. So one of the options will probably be a sales tax, at least for consideration. We would hope to be able to come to you with an amount that is no more than a renewal of the existing rate, probably reformulated to have some amount for roads, some for solid waste. Again, recognizing the environment we're in, we want to try to come to you without an increase in any existing levy. So we just need to get more detailed on that, but it won't be long.
Okay, well, the feedback that I'm getting is very simple. We just don't want to do without it. You know, that mean, and I can understand why, and I'm not, probably not a good choice of words, but you know, you get spoiled a good service, you really do. You take it for granted after a while. And that was one of the things that I'd been asked over the last few weeks since there had been some discussion about it, and I appreciate your answer. Gives me something to hang a hat on, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Anderponder. Ms. Trimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, that was a beautiful presentation. But I want to tell Jerry and Tammy Buffkin and Jerry Milner, y'all rock now, I'm telling you. I know that's a kind of a funny way to say it, but I mean, you do. I mean, y'all are just, I brought some things with me tonight that if I have a chance and y'all give me a time to talk. Now, my president is rolling his eyes because he doesn't like me to talk much, but the people out there in TV land, they want to hear me. They tell me that all the time. I'm telling y'all out there, too. So I brought my book.
You got the floor. Just go right ahead.
It says, "It's Leadership on the Line." And this is an outstanding book, and I'm going to ask that maybe each one of y'all pass this around and read it, because it's where I went as president this year of the Louisiana Police Jury. They sent me to New York University at the Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service. It was the most intense boot camp I've ever been in on leadership. And there are a few things that I would like to mention later in our regular meeting, if you don't mind. Are you saying it's okay, Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. You need to read this book, dear kind sir. So thank you so much for our staff, for all of our department heads. I mean, we've had such awesome leadership, and it's like Francis said, I've only been here since 1992. And I say only because, like Jimmy Vickers has been here 29 years, Lucas probably not nipping at his heels, Mark over 30 years. I mean, all of Claude, what are you knocking on? You're knocking on going out the back window so you don't have to listen. Yeah, I see you out there. Just want to let you know. But anyhow, we have the finest, the best, the most awesome leadership in our parish. And serving on a statewide basis, my guess is we're probably, if not the only parish in 64 parishes that has zero debt. Surplus, but no debt. I'd like to know any other of the 63 parishes that can say that. And when we do ask, it is for a short period of time for what we hope is what the leadership of this police jury does for what's right for Calcasieu Parish together. And the only way we can do it is working together. That doesn't mean that we agree. All it means is that we work through things And once we finish working through those things, we come to an agreement of what's best for Calcasieu. So, Mark, thank you for your advice and picking me up by the bootstraps many a time. And all the times I thought I wouldn't get help, but you were really carrying me. It was like the Lord said, you look back and there's no footprints, but you were carrying us through the sand that was shifting under our feet. And I'd like to thank you for that and for the people the classy people and the hardworking people that you have working for you and the people that you've hired. And for, I can't leave out Colleen and Kathy and Jessica and all the people that the support team that you put around you that makes your job easier, because you can just throw it at them and they catch the football and run for the goal line. And when you say, I'm ready for it, they just hand it to you and it's done. So thank you so much. I'm sorry I talked too long, but to you people out there in TV land, I'm looking at you right now. I love you. Let you know this, that this police jury is here for you. Each one of us are elected by the 185,000 people that we represent. We want to do what you want us to do. You need to let us know how you want us to move forward. And so I'm talking directly to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmy. Ms. Griffin, do you still want to speak?
No, sir. I'll pass.
I had a feeling that might be the case. Any other questions by any of the jurors? Are there any jurors in the audience that would like to come up and ask a question? Thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 4. Consideration of making a recommendation with reference to grant funding requests from the following public entities from the parish's gaming fund, and further approving
Move on
the cooperative
Second.
endeavor agreement, and further authorizing the president of police jury to execute all documents related thereto. 4.1, Ward 1, Fire Protection District Number 1, $50,000 construction of a 16 by 24 storm shelter. On June 19th, 2008, the police jury approved a grant in the amount of $100,000 for the renovation and/or repair of the central fire station, and only $49,412.79 was requested and transferred. The fire district has requested that $50,000 of the previously awarded grant be allocated for this purpose.
Move.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Anderpont and a second by Ms. Griffin. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. 4.2 is Ward 4, 50% Ward 4 gaming funds and 50% parish-wide economic development allocation
Move on for
for the
two.
Waterworks District Number 11 of Wards 4 and 7, and $25,000 expansion of water line to serve the children's home facilities currently under construction on Highway 27 north of Houston River Road. I have a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? McMillan, I'm sorry. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. 4.3 is Ward 4, Sulphur Parks and Recreation, $2,500 for expenses related to sponsorship of
Move on,
several
4.3.
community-wide events held at SPAR facilities. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont and a second
Question.
by Ms. Trimming. Ms. Griffin.
Yes, sir. Do you have the name of those different community-wide events that's going to be receiving this? It says several community-wide events. Do you know what events?
Yes, ma'am. One of them was a CCOA, Council on Aging event, and the other was related to the community Thanksgiving that has been put in place over there in Sulphur for a good many years.
Yeah, I know we do that thing. I just want to know which ones.
And there at SPAR, SPAR was providing the facilities and everything for that, so.
Just like to know for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 4.4 is in Ward 4. Ward 4, Marshall, $4,000 expenses related to their litter
Move.
program.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy, second by Mr. Anderpont. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Anderpont. May I, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair?
You may, ma'am.
Mr. Underpont, what kind of expenses related to the litter program? What are they in need of?
Basically what he does, he has an officer hired that goes around and visits with all the fifth grade students throughout Ward 4. And to add to Ward 4, it won't be long, Sandy can attest to this, that he will be in Ward 6, speaking to the sixth grades. And while he's there, they have kind of rulers and, pencils and
give
stuff,
out.
To give out. And
That's
so
good.
the money's well spent.
Okay, good enough. Just
Good
want to
question.
know.
Good
Want to know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. 4-5 is also in Ward 4, City of Westlake Police Department, $18,500 for computer upgrades. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan, second by Ms. Griffin. Mr. McMillan.
Yes, this is gonna be it's $18,500 with a 50-50 match out of my Riverboat Gaming Fund, along with, money out of the pool money, for that, to help out the Westlake Police Department.
Out of your
Yeah,
Out of-
payment?
Out of my gaming fund, and then 50% match out of the large Ward 4 pool.
Okay.
So
I-
I'm gonna match it 50-50.
I didn't know he
Kevin
had
and I
his
are
own
thinking
game.
about your.
Yeah,
You said his gaming.
I noticed that also.
The money applied to the gaming fund
Okay.
on my behalf and my district.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. McFillan.
That's better. I'm glad we got that cleared up. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 4-6 is in Ward 6, Waterworks District Number 7 of Wards 4 and 6, $60,000 for the installation of a 6-inch water line
moved.
along the south side of newly constructed Pine Forest Road south of DeQuincy. I have a motion by Ms.
there
Tremmy,
any
a second
question?
by President McMillan. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. 4-7 is in Ward 6, Ward 6 Fire Protection District Number 1, $58,000 for the purchase of bunker gear and air packs.
So move.
Purchase
Second.
and installation of a water tank and well at Station 3, and purchase and installation of a sign and flagpole at Station 2. I have a motion by Ms. Tremmy, second by Ms. Griffin. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5 is consideration of making a recommendation
five.
with reference to a request from Gravity Drainage District Number 4 of Ward 3 for funding the amount of $450,000 or 60%, whichever is less, for drainage improvements to Tyler Road area in Ward 3, and further approving a cooperative endeavor agreement and authorizing the President of Police Jury to execute all documents related thereto. I have a motion by Ms. Griffin and a second by Ms. Tremmy. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 6, consideration of making a recommendation with reference to a request from Gravity Drainage District Number 8 of Ward 1 for interim project financing in the amount of $200,000 to construct and complete the North Perkins Ferry outfall drainage
So
project.
moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Tremmy, second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7. Any other matters for
Move to
discussion?
adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn and a second. We are adjourned.
hang on.
Oh, hold on.
Back up.
We're not adjourned.
Got him napping.
That's all right.
Yeah. Item number 6. I've talked to Mr. Spell about this. While I think the board adopted a resolution that they were looking to repay this in annual payments of up to 30, I think we have suggested, and I think they have agreed, to make that in annual payments of up to $50,000, so as to not extend the payout for more than 5 years. Now, it is conceivable they will not need the entire $200,000, and if so, that will cut down the amount of time for the loan, but the loan will not run for in excess of 5 years if they need the entire amount there. So I just wanted to clarify that so the minutes will reflect that appropriately. And having said that, because this interim project financing is beginning to be a little bit more prevalent, I think we'll come back to you at some point with a recommendation about how to maybe go forward in the future with these type of loans, because we can call it anything else, but that's kind of what it is, and we're really not a bank. And, you know, we don't want to get ourselves so loaned up to the various districts or other subdivisions of the parish that at some point your fund balance would be at risk for some emergency that you may have for yourself. So we need to put some some procedures, policies in place, maybe about the percentage of the total fund balance at any given time that would be loaned, the amount of time that you would extend a loan to someone, maybe not to exceed 5 years, those kind of things. And so I talked to Tammy, and we're going to work up some suggested procedures or policies for you that you could put in place so that we won't be doing this by the seat of our pants like this. So, but that's for later. I just wanted to mention it since we're on the seal. But this would be for not to exceed 5 years, which would be $40,000 a year would be what they would pay us, not 50. Kathy, I'm sorry. Well, the foregone interest, yeah, that was already said, wasn't it?
Okay.
Okay, well, it would include the foregone interest.
All right, and I think Ms. Trimmy made the motion. We'll just include that in your motion. Mr. Guidry made the second, which I'm sure he'll go along with that. Ms. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I really didn't hear the last few statements with Colleen say something about interest.
We've made a policy informally, but y'all have always approved that when we extend a loan to one of our districts, that they're charged only the interest rate that we forego. In other words, if we're loaning them money that we had on reserve and had at an interest-bearing account, we're losing that interest by giving them that money during that period of time. So we charge them only the interest rate that we are losing by not having that money invested. We don't charge them an interest rate as a bank would to make money off of it. And so we would tie that into the policy of the loan, is they would pay that foregone interest to us.
And your suggestion about going back and coming up with some things to help us so that in the future we could make sure that we don't become a bank in essence.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's needed, and that has always been one of my concerns when we loan out money. What will happen if they're not able to repay? So that's good. That's a wise decision, and I look forward to seeing whatever you come back with. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Is there any further discussion on item 6?
Move to adjourn.
Well,
Hold on one moment. Okay. Mr. Farnham? No. Mr. McMurray, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to have to apologize. Apparently this was, I didn't put this on the agenda. Ellis had requested, he had a request of him some time back from the fire chief down in the Carlos area for some equipment that they needed, and the total cost of that equipment, it appears, was around $20,000, almost $21,000. And Ellis, they were looking for a 75% match.
Mr. Hassan, if you would come to the microphone.
122 Vine. I moved in with Mr. Atherton.
With Charlie? Well, you make sure when you do move in, don't take my room, because I'm living there with him myself.
This was Mark, the reason I sent that to you, was there a reason why it wasn't on?
I don't even remember getting this, so I apologize. I don't.
I know I've talked to a few of the Ward 4 jurors about it. What we were asking for is a 75% match from the Ward 4 gaming, which amounts to $15,500, I think, give or take.
Okay. Mr. Andrew Pont.
This can come up under any other matters for consideration.
It could, sir.
Not intentionally omitted, and we did visit about that, and I don't think anybody has a problem. I would move that we approve the request.
Yes, sir.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Pont, second by President McMillan. Any discussion?
Just one question.
Yes.
They just passed a pretty significant increase in their property taxes for that district last week. This request came in before the election.
I congratulate them for passing passing their taxes. That the voters of that district have complete confidence in that board to spend their money wisely.
Question.
Ms. Griffin.
Something for us.
So if they pass that tax, then will they still be needing that money?
Yes, for that particular equipment they would, because this is equipment that they need right now for the expansion of services in that district. Just in Mr. Farnham's area, they've had to put a new fire station there, and they're needing this equipment to supply that fire station.
Never remember seeing anything.
Well, I sure don't want to fight with the whole west side of the river.
Thank y'all.
Or maybe they don't want to fight with you.
Sounds like
That might be.
I think that's well stated, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carried. I'm not going to even ask for a
Please
motion to
don't.
adjourn. I'm going to ask Mr. McMurray, is that it? Are we done?
As far as I know, yes,
As
sir.
far as we know, okay. Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
6.